Major changes just hit Trump's big, beautiful bill, and some of them could hit your wallet, your health care, or your retirement harder than you think. On Monday, the Senate spent all day pushing through surprise amendments, hidden tax hikes, and cuts that weren't in last week's version. And now things are moving fast to get this signed before the July 4th deadline. In this update, I'll walk you through exactly what changed, what's still being negotiated, and why this latest version has some lawmakers and regular Americans sounding the alarm. If you're on Medicaid, close to retirement, or just trying to understand what this means for your future, this part matters. Let's break it down. Now, the Senate kicked off what they call a vote-a-rama. Basically a non-stop, amendment-by-amendment voting marathon where senators can propose as many changes as they want, one after the other, with no breaks and no clear finish line. It started Monday morning, and by the time most folks were headed to bed, the Senate chamber was still buzzing with votes, negotiations, and holdouts. That alone tells you something. This bill isn't a done deal, and this wasn't just a procedural thing. Monday revealed some of the most intense disagreements yet about healthcare, energy, tasks, and what kind of country this bill is trying to shape. And I know it's easy to feel lost in the details. So let's take this step by step. First, let's talk about Medicaid. If you're on Medicaid or someone your family relies on it, this part is especially important. According to official numbers, the Senate version of the bill would leave nearly 12 million more people uninsured by 2034. That's a lot of families without coverage. And the cuts, nearly $930 billion over 10 years. But here's where it goes deeper. This version adds new rules that would require more people to work in order to keep their coverage, including some parents of teenagers. That's never happened before. The House version gave an exception to parents with kids under 18, but the Senate took that out. And for a lot of low-income families, that might make the difference between qualifying and getting dropped. It's one of those changes that sounds small on paper, but could be huge in practice. Imagine being a single parent with a 15-year-old, working odd hours, trying to make ends meet, and now being told your coverage is at risk unless you hit a weekly work minimum. That's a lot of pressure for families already stretched thin. Also, states would have a harder time raising local funds for Medicaid because of new federal limits. Not a technical detail, but the impact is very real. If you live in a rural area where your local hospital already runs on a tight budget, these changes could lead to cutbacks or even closures. And that brings us to the Planned Parenthood decision. Late Monday, the Senate decided to keep a ban in the bill that would stop Medicaid payment from going to Planned Parenthood, but just for 1 year instead of 10. That might sound like a compromise, but it could still shut down hundreds of clinics, especially in areas where options are already limited. And these clinics don't just do abortions. They offer cancer screenings, birth control, and general health care for women and families. So the short-term damage could still be long-lasting. Now, let's pause here. You might be thinking, why rush a bill with this many moving parts? Why not slow down and review it carefully? Well, there's a reason. President Trump has made it clear he wants this bill on his desk by the 4th of July. It's a political deadline, but that's why things are moving fast, even if not everyone agrees with the direction. Let's shift to another big piece. Spending. The Senate version of the bill is projected to add around $3.3 trillion to the national deficit over 10 years. That's almost $1 trillion more than the House version. And a big reason for that is taxes. The Senate kept in some major corporate tax breaks, made a few of them permanent, and dialed back cuts to safety net programs like food stamps. There's a phrase being thrown around in Washington this week. Expand the giveaways, shrink the takeaways. So that's how one budget analyst described the Senate version. It's more generous on the front end, but offers fewer ways to pay for it over time. And while that might sound good at first, the long-term math gets messy. Now, depending on who you ask, this is either a needed economic boost or a reckless gamble. Supporters say this will fuel growth, help businesses hire more workers, and give the economy a jolt. But opponents argue it puts the burden on everyday people in the form of service cuts, higher bills, or future tax hikes. And here's where it gets even more heated. Elon Musk came out swinging. He posted Monday that anyone who supports this bill after promising to cut spending should, quote, hang their head in shame. He even went so far as to say that if the bill passes, he'll help form a new political party called the America Party. Now, say what you want about Elon Musk, but he's not the only one raising red flags. Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, gave one of the most passionate speeches we've seen so far. He said the bill breaks Trump's promise to protect Medicaid and that over 600,000 people in his state would lose coverage. Then he announced he won't seek re-election. That's a big move. He's not posturing for votes. He's walking away, making his disagreement loud and clear. Behind the scenes, things weren't much calmer. Senate Democrats accused Republicans of making last-minute changes behind closed doors. Senator Schumer said GOP leaders were hiding parts of the bill, making deals off the record, and refusing to show what was really being changed. And if you followed Congress for a while, you know those kinds of accusations don't get thrown around lightly. Even some moderate Republicans were uneasy. Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins sided with Democrats on several amendments, mostly ones that dealt with protecting Medicaid and rural hospitals. That's not something they do lightly. When members of your own party start crossing the aisle, it usually means there are serious concerns behind the scenes. Now, let's talk about energy, because this part slipped under the radar for a lot of people. Over the weekend, Republicans added a new tax on solar and wind industries. Yes, right in the middle of the energy transition. Experts say this could seriously slow down clean energy development, just as demand for electricity is expected to skyrocket thanks to AI data centers and advanced tech infrastructure. And that's not even the part raising eyebrows. According to one analysis, energy bills in red states like Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas could rise by up to 18% by 2035 if this bill goes through as written. So, if you're a retiree on a fixed income or someone already juggling tight monthly costs, this is one more thing to watch. And here's something even more behind the scenes, but important. The way they're calculating the cost of this bill changed on Monday. The Senate used something called a current policy baseline instead of the usual method. That means they're assuming some tax cuts stay in place permanently, even if the law says they expire. The result, the bill looks cheaper than it really is. Critics are saying this sets a dangerous precedent because it makes it easier to hide the true cost of future bills. Now, where does all this leave us? As of Monday night, no final vote had been taken. Senators were still voting on amendments late into the evening, with more expected Tuesday. If the bill clears the Senate, it'll head to the House, where leadership is already bracing for pushbacks. Some moderates don't like it. Some conservatives think it's too weak. And yet, the goal is still to get it to President Trump by Wednesday. So then, what should you be paying attention to next? Watch the Medicaid numbers. Look at what gets added or quietly removed before the final vote. And listen to how both sides are talking about the bill publicly versus privately. There's a lot happening behind the curtain right now. Let me know which part of this worries you the most. Are you focused on the healthcare side, the tax breaks, maybe the energy costs, or do you feel like it's just moving too fast overall? Drop a comment. I read what you write and it helps me know what to focus on next. And if you got a neighbor, parent, or friend who's trying to stay in the loop but doesn't know where to start, send us their way. We'll be keeping close watch over the next 48 hours, and as soon as there's a final vote, I'll be back with the update. For now, stay tuned, stay grounded, and let's keep walking through this together.